Grant Mercer's fingertip stops on the number 87.4 projected against the boardroom glass. This survey is fake. The room is bright enough for me to see his reflection behind the data: silver tie, careful haircut, the small white scar beside his mouth. He taps the number again. "Those totals were invented," he announces across the glass boardroom. "Mara built a result to punish operations for rejecting her recommendations." At the far end of the table, the county's external auditor closes my report. Then I'd like the untouched response cards. Grant's hand drops. "They're past retention," he says. "They were preserved," I tell her. Across the table, my husband looks at me, then at his brother. Daniel's expression contains a question I can't answer without breaking something we may not be able to repair. The records clerk wheels in a gray archive tote. Celeste Park finds the first blue security seal and slips her thumbnail beneath its edge. 7 weeks earlier, that same shade of blue was stuck to my sleeve while I tried to eat yogurt over my keyboard. I found it when Daniel came into my office carrying 2 coffees and a paper bag darkened with butter. He plucked the strip of security tape from my cardigan and held it up. "You're molting." Occupational hazard. Most people shed skin cells. You shed evidence. He dropped the blue strip into my trash and put a coffee beside my keyboard. Daniel worked 3 buildings over at Mercer Fleet. The maintenance company his parents had started before Civic Access Transit became the larger half of the family business. His official title was parts manager. In practice, he knew which lift motors screamed in cold weather, which mechanics took cinnamon in their coffee, and how to get a wheelchair ramp controller from Ohio to Maryland by 9 the next morning. The bag held a cheese Danish. "You're trying to influence an independent analyst," I said. "I'm married to an independent analyst. Influence is one of the remaining benefits." "Remaining?" He leaned down and kissed my hair. "I'm leaving while I'm ahead." He almost made it. "You're coming Friday, right?" he asked from the doorway. "Friday. And you won't bring the route report?" "I never bring route reports to dinner." "You brought one to Thanksgiving. Your dad asked why overtime was up. He was making conversation. Your family makes conversation with spreadsheets." Daniel gave me the crooked smile that had once convinced me to attend a Mercer barbecue in a thunderstorm. 7. Mom's doing the roast. After he left, I peeled back the foil lid on the yogurt and looked again at the survey dashboard. Pickup satisfaction had dropped from 91.8% to 87.4 in 1 quarter. 4.5 points would sound small to anyone who had never waited after dialysis with their coat on and their blood pressure falling. The comments made it less abstract. Driver was kind. Dispatch said 10 minutes. It was 46. The van was clean, but I missed the first appointment slot. Please stop changing my pickup time after I'm already downstairs. The survey cards came in every weekday afternoon inside gray root pouches. Drivers gave riders a carbonless form near the end of each trip. The rider marked 5 questions, tore off the yellow transfer copy, and handed it back in the pouch. The white original went through a slot in a locked box bolted behind the van's passenger compartment. Once a month, the boxes were opened under dual control. The white originals were bundled by depot, sealed with numbered blue tape, and sent to the county records office. It was an awkward system with too many envelopes, but awkward systems could be honest. The yellow copies let me report quickly. The sealed whites gave the county a clean comparison if anyone challenged the numbers. In 6 years, no one had. I checked the route filter again. The decline clustered between 2:30 and 5 on the Western Loop, exactly where Grant's new scheduling model had cut the turnaround buffer from 20 minutes to 8. My office door opened without a knock. Grant came in holding a yellow survey card by one corner. "You count this? Good morning." "Did you?" I took the card. The rider had marked pickup timeliness as poor, vehicle cleanliness as excellent, and driver courtesy as excellent. At the top was route W-18, run 4421. Yes, Monday's batch. This run arrived 6 minutes early. According to what? Dispatch. Dispatch records the van at the address the rider is rating when they got into it. It was at the address. I enlarged the trip record. The driver marked unable to locate passenger at 2:16, then completed the pickup at 2:39. So the rider wasn't ready. The comment says the van was around the corner. Grant's face did a subtle thing when he was annoyed. His mouth relaxed while everything around it tightened. You're taking an anonymous comment over GPS. I'm taking both. GPS says the van was on Briar, not at the clinic entrance. Briar is the clinic. Briar is the service road behind the clinic. He reached around me and tapped the monitor, close enough that his cuff brushed my shoulder. The geofence counts it. The rider doesn't get picked up by a geofence. Grant straightened. He had a good laugh, warm and low, and for 1 second, I thought I might hear it. Instead, he laid the survey card on my desk. Quality people love a sentence like that. Do we? It sounds principled. It also sounds expensive. He picked up Daniel's second coffee by mistake, read the name, then put it down. Grant had hired me when my previous employer merged its billing office out of state. At the time, I had experience with health transportation claims, but no formal quality title. He created one. He taught me how a 7-minute delay at the first pickup could become 40 minutes by the end of a route. He also taught me that when he said expensive, he meant discussion over. The county review is in 7 weeks, he said. I need a preliminary deck Monday. Separate rider perception from verified performance. The survey is rider perception. Then label it as anecdotal. It's a contract metric. I wrote the response to that contract, Mara. And you included this survey. That almost produced the laugh. Monday. He left the card on top of my Danish wrapper. At noon, I walked to dispatch. Civic Access occupied a converted appliance warehouse with offices along one wall and 8 service bays behind them. Dispatch sat in a glass room above the vehicle floor where 3 coordinators worked beneath a row of monitors showing vans as numbered dots. The room always smelled like dry erase marker and somebody's reheated lunch. Ruth Bell was standing at the printer, shaking a toner cartridge as if it had disappointed her personally. She had been dispatching medical rides for 19 years and wore tiny gold reading glasses on a chain. If you're here about W18, she said, it's ugly. How did you know? Grant was here smiling. The printer coughed out a gray page. I pulled a chair beside her. How ugly? Ruth opened the afternoon schedule. The model assumes 12 minutes from Lakeview dialysis to Harbor rehab. Map says 9. Map has never loaded a folding chair in sleet. It was 62 degrees yesterday. The chair doesn't care. She clicked through 4 days. W-18 was meeting its geofences, but drivers were closing pickups before riders boarded. That preserved the route's on-time percentage while pushing the actual delay into loading time, which the dashboard treated as service duration. Are drivers doing that on their own? I asked. Ruth looked over her glasses. That question has a necktie. A coordinator at the next station rolled away from us to reach the filing cabinet. Ruth lowered her voice. Grant told them the new bank package needs 93% on time. He said use the software as designed. That's not the same as telling them to close early. Grant is talented that way. I wrote down 3 run numbers. Ruth watched my pen. You planning to save us? I'm trying to understand the survey drop. Understanding is how saving starts. Then comes a meeting with muffins and 6 new fields we have to fill in. I've never ordered meeting muffins. You bring almonds. Same oppression, less frosting. I smiled despite myself. Can you export actual boarding times? If the tablet captured them, half the drivers hit the button with gloves on. Send whatever you have. Ruth pulled off her glasses. He's proud of this model. I know. No, you know he built it. I'm saying he's proud of it. Different animal. By Friday, I had matched 43 poor pickup ratings to the Western Loop. 31 involved early geofence closures, followed by loading periods longer than 15 minutes. The pattern wasn't dramatic enough to look like sabotage or incompetence. It looked like pressure moving downhill. Grant needed a number. Dispatch needed drivers to protect the number. Drivers found the nearest button that kept them moving. I drafted a recommendation to restore 12 minutes of buffer on clinic departures and test it for 30 days. The cost was 36 additional driver hours a week. Grant returned the draft with one sentence in the margin. Confirm survey integrity before operational conclusions. At dinner, his note sat in my head while his mother passed me a bowl of glazed carrots. The Mercers ate in the same dining room where Daniel and Grant had done homework decades earlier. Framed fleet photographs had replaced the old family portraits on one wall. 2 tow trucks in 1989, the first wheelchair van in 2003, the new depot ribbon cutting last summer. Grant was in every photograph after 2012, usually at the edge, looking toward whoever held the scissors. His father, Walter, carved the roast. He had retired 3 years ago and still wore a Mercer Fleet polo every Friday. "How's the county deck?" he asked. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. "Preliminary," I said. Grant reached for the pepper. Mara found some unfavorable comments. "Survey comments?" Walter asked. "And a small statistical movement," Grant said. "We're validating it." 4.5 points had become a small movement in under a week. Daniel touched his knee against mine beneath the table. Grant's wife, Elise, set down her wine. She managed a dental lab and had the unnerving habit of letting silence finish other people's sentences. "Validating the comments," she said, "or the roots." Grant sprinkled pepper over his roast. "The data." "That sounds like the comments, then." He looked at her. Elise drank her wine. Walter asked me, "What are writers saying?" Before I could answer, Grant said, "That waits feel longer than they are," which is understandable. They're coming out of appointments. They're tired. "They're also holding yellow cards with 5 boxes," I said. "The question is pretty specific." Daniel's knee pressed harder. Grant smiled. This time, the warmth arrived, which made it worse. "See? This is why Mara's good. She cares about every card. The compliment placed me exactly where he wanted me. Earnest, narrow, incapable of seeing the business surrounding my little pieces of paper." Walter nodded as he carved another slice. "Your job is to care about the cards. His is to make payroll." Daniel said, "And mine is apparently to eat this end piece." He speared the overcooked slice from the platter, and his mother scolded him, giving everyone a bridge to a safer subject. In the car afterward, rain ticked against the windshield. "You kicked me under the table," I said. I used my knee. My tibia appreciates the distinction. Daniel drove 2 blocks before answering. "Grant's been at the bank all week." So Dad and Mom guaranteed the fleet loan. The county renewal drives the refinancing. I recommended a 30-day test. "I know. You haven't read it." "I know you." Streetlights moved across his face in pale bars. I turned toward the window. "That can sound a lot like believing me until your brother disagrees." "He doesn't disagree that delays matter. He disagrees about what causes them. He told your father the writers are confused. He shouldn't have done that. But he did." Daniel stopped at a red light. His hands rested at 10 and 2, the way they always did when he was trying not to say the first thing that came to him. "Just make sure your numbers are clean," he said. The light changed. On Monday morning, 2 gray root pouches were waiting on my chair. Both were marked W-18. Both carried run number 4479. The handwriting was different, the yellow survey cards inside were different, and each pouch had been stamped received at 6:42 p.m. with the brass date stamp from the dispatch counter. I carried them upstairs to Ruth. She took one look and locked her screen. "Where did these come from?" "My chair." "Then someone wants you to find them. Or wants to know what I do when I find them." Ruth rubbed the bridge of her nose. Below us, a van reversed into Bay 3, its backup alarm pulsing through the glass. I set the duplicate pouches side by side. "Who can print replacement route labels?" "Dispatch, operations, quality, meaning me, meaning whoever wants the answer to be you." I photographed both labels beside the brass date stamp. Then I opened the retention schedule and began an email to the county records clerk. I kept the email narrow. Denise Hall. During routine reconciliation, I found 2 root pouches labeled W-18/Run4479. Please preserve the corresponding white original survey packets for the current quarter pending identification review. Blue seal numbers should be 30114 through 30119. Thank you, Mara Bell Mercer. Quality analyst. My finger hovered over send. Ruth stood beside me with her arms folded. You put Mercer in the signature when you're mad. It's my name. You usually sign Mara. I sent the message. Denise answered 11 minutes later. Preservation noted. Do you need images of the packet labels? I asked for labels only. Opening the packets would require a formal audit request, and I wasn't accusing anyone of tampering. I wanted the originals held long enough to understand why one run number had appeared twice. Ruth leaned close to read the reply. Efficient woman. She runs records for 3 county departments. Efficiency is probably a medical condition. Tell her I have 20 years of dispatch logs she can alphabetize if she gets bored. I put the duplicate pouches in a clear evidence sleeve and locked them in my bottom drawer. At 9:18, Grant called me upstairs. His office overlooked the service bays. He had chosen it when Civic Access moved into the warehouse, saying an operations director should be able to see the operation. From his desk, he could watch mechanics, drivers, dispatchers, and anyone walking from my office to Ruth's. My email was open on his monitor. You placed a county hold on survey records? I requested preservation of 6 packets. Without speaking to me, the retention procedure says quality can request preservation for a dispute, for an identification discrepancy. He swung the monitor toward me, though I had written every word on it. Pending identification review. What does that suggest to you? That I'm reviewing an identification problem. It suggests suspected falsification, only if someone already suspects falsification. The scar beside his mouth whitened. He had gotten it years before I met him, when a van hood latch failed on the highway. Daniel said Grant had held the hood down with a cargo strap and driven 12 miles with his head out the window. I could never reconcile that reckless competence with the man who measured every sentence before letting it out. Grant rose and closed his office door. Replacement pouches happen, he said. Labels get wet, zippers break, drivers spill coffee. Then there should be a replacement notation. There should be. Dispatch is busy. Both were date stamped at the same time. That's why we stamp them when they come in. Ruth didn't recognize the second pouch. Ruth doesn't personally bless every office supply. I looked through the window. Below us, Ruth was back at her station, gold glasses catching the monitor light. Grant sat down. You're too close to this. To the survey? To proving your route recommendation was right. I found the pouches after I wrote the recommendation, and now you've involved the county. I preserved records. You created a question in the mind of a client who wasn't asking one. He had a way of making caution sound like contamination. I glanced at the framed county commendation behind him. It recognized Civic Access for maintaining service during a fuel shortage. Grant had personally negotiated access to a municipal diesel reserve while 3 competitors canceled routes. The county trusted him because he had earned some of that trust. What would you have done? I asked. Found the printing log, asked dispatch, resolved it internally. Okay, let's do that. His eyes narrowed, as if cooperation had been another kind of trap. We will, he said. Until then, stop drawing conclusions from the survey. At 3, Ruth sent me the label printer log. The second W-18 label had been printed at 4:58 p.m. under an operations administrator account. The printer lived in Grant's outer office. That proved very little. 3 people used the account. The print could have been legitimate. What mattered was that someone had relabeled a pouch before the original route returned to the depot, then left both copies on my chair. I checked the trip history for run 4479. My access produced an error, permission not authorized. I tried another run, then the quarterly route table. Same message. Grant answered my call on the second ring. Did my access change? Yes. IT is separating survey analysis from operational validation. Since when? Since you raised an integrity concern. I can't validate without trip data. Operations will validate operations. You'll count the survey. You told me to confirm survey integrity. And you will, within your role. A socket wrench hit concrete in the bay below with a metallic crack. Did you send the pouches to my office? I asked. Why would I do that? I don't know. Then that's an unusual question. The line stayed open for a moment after he stopped speaking. I could hear him typing. Anything else? He asked. No. Good. Preliminary deck by 4. He disconnected. The deck I submitted had 2 charts. The first showed the survey decline. The second showed response volume by depot, with a note that operational correlation was pending because my access had been restricted. At 3:47, Grant came down carrying a printed copy. He shut my office door and placed the pages on my desk. Remove this note. It explains why correlation is missing. It tells the client we have an internal access dispute. We do. We have standard segregation of duties. We got it this afternoon. His jaw moved once. You know what I've always valued about you? This was not a question with a safe answer. Precision, he said. You don't turn everything into a referendum on whether people respect you. I sat back. He continued in the same calm voice. When the compliance manager role opened last year, I told you the reason you weren't ready. Leadership requires proportion. You've improved since then. Don't regress because I challenged one report. The promotion had gone to a consultant from Richmond who lasted 5 months and left a drawer full of peppermint tea. Grant had told me I needed more exposure to operations. Now that I had drawn an operational conclusion, he wanted me back inside the survey boxes. I'll revise the note, I said. His shoulders eased. To say operational data was unavailable to quality as of Monday afternoon, the ease vanished. That is insubordination dressed as editing. It's accurate. Accurate isn't the only requirement in a client document. What's the other one? Judgment. He left the pages where he had placed them. The top sheet carried a faint black line down one side, the mark our third-floor copier made when its glass needed cleaning. I revised nothing. The next morning, the coordinator who usually delivered East Depot pouches emailed to say Grant had reassigned her to billing support. The West Depot coordinator followed before lunch. Both changes were described as temporary resource balancing. My pouches began arriving in plastic mail tubs with no reconciliation sheets. It slowed me down exactly as much as Grant intended. Every afternoon, I sorted loose yellow copies by hand, checked route numbers against static PDF schedules, and recorded anything incomplete. Cards that had once taken 40 minutes took 2 hours. Grant still expected the weekly dashboard Friday morning. On Wednesday, a driver named Leon Price appeared in my doorway with his reflective vest half-zipped and a folded survey card in his hand. Are we in trouble for these now? Why would you be? Dispatch says hand them out, operations says response rates are too low, then Mr. Mercer asks why riders are complaining. Grant asked you about complaints? Asked if we were explaining the scale right. Leon looked down at the card. Poor to excellent seems clear unless somebody changed what words mean. Did you drive W-18 last Monday? His expression closed. I'm reviewing duplicate pouch labels, I said. I'm not reviewing you. That route was split. Where? Lakeview. I got behind, so they told me close the run and open a relief run. Same riders, same vehicle. New run number was supposed to come through the tablet, but it froze. Who told you to close it? Dispatch. Who in dispatch? His jaw worked. Radio. The radio system recorded calls, but I no longer had access to it. Leon placed the folded card on my desk. A rider had marked pickup poor and written. Leon stayed with me until the clinic reopened the lobby. Not his fault. He gave me that after I went back inside to find a blanket, Leon said. Didn't want it in the box because he thought it would get me written up. Why are you giving it to me? Because he was right about the weight. He left before I could ask more. The card could not enter the formal count. It had not gone through either half of the controlled process. I put it in a separate envelope labeled unscored correspondence and wrote the date, time, and Leon's name across the flap. At home that evening, Daniel was kneeling on the kitchen floor with the cabinet beneath the sink open. "We have developed plumbing," he said. Water had soaked 2 dish towels and the cardboard box of trash bags. He held up a corroded coupling. "I'm impressed," I said. "You shouldn't be. I turned it the wrong way for 10 minutes. I changed clothes and came back to find him lying under the pipes. His phone flashlight stood in a coffee mug. "Hand me the channel locks." I looked at the tools. Which ones are emotionally mature enough for plumbing leadership? The ones with blue handles. I gave them to him. His hand emerged again. "Did you really put in a preservation request?" There it was, between the leaking trap and the dishwasher detergent. "Grant told you?" He asked if I knew. And I said I didn't. "Did he believe you?" Daniel slid out and sat with his back against the cabinet. A dark, wet patch marked one shoulder. "He thinks this is about the compliance job. He told me I'm regressing." Daniel winced. "That sounds like him. It sounds like you agree." "I didn't say that. You didn't have to. You asked if I really preserved the records like I'd ordered an excavation of the parking lot." He looked at the channel locks in his hand. "Mom and Dad's refinancing meeting is next month. The survey isn't about their loan. To you." The words landed so cleanly, I almost respected them. I sat at the kitchen table. "What is it about to you?" "My parents' house, the company, 112 employees, my brother being impossible, my wife deciding that every procedural question has one morally correct answer. Preserving records is not a moral crusade. Then why do you sound like this?" "Like what?" "Like if I ask you to be careful, I'm asking you to lie." The pipe dripped into the metal bowl beneath it. Each drop made a bright, irritating ping. I said, "Grant took away my access after duplicate records appeared in my office. Then he reassigned the people who reconcile my survey batches." Daniel stared at me. "That part he left out?" I asked. "He said he separated duties." Within 4 hours of the hold, Daniel put the pliers down. "I'll ask him." "I don't want you to ask your brother to be nice to me." "That's not what I said. I want you to decide whether what I'm telling you matters before he explains why it doesn't." His mouth opened, then closed. He crawled back under the sink and tightened the coupling until the drip slowed. Friday morning, my dashboard was finished at 5:36. I sent it to Grant with the unscored card excluded and the survey decline unchanged. At 9, he called a methodology meeting, Ruth attended by video from dispatch. HR sent a business partner named Colleen, whose presence transformed the legal pad in front of me into an object I suddenly resented. Grant opened with concern. "We've identified inconsistencies in the survey chain," he said. "Mara has also expressed frustration about access and advancement. My goal is to protect her and the company from questions about objectivity." "Protect me from whom?" I asked. "From the appearance of conflict." Ruth's face on the screen became very still. Colleen clicked her pen. "Grant is proposing a temporary peer review of the quarter's survey totals." "By who?" "Operations Analytics," Grant said. "Your department. With oversight from HR. Does the peer reviewer get the yellow cards?" "Copies." I looked at the black line running down the photocopied agenda, same third-floor copier. Grant's revised chart sat beneath it. Pickup satisfaction restored to 92.6% after excluding what he called incomplete or perception inconsistent responses. "You already did the review," I said. "We tested a methodology. You removed 37 negative cards. We isolated unverified events. The contract doesn't let us discard a writer's answer because dispatch disagrees." Grant folded his hands. "That's your interpretation. It's on the signed survey protocol. We'll locate the current protocol. I reached into my folder and set a 3-page document on the table. The final page carried Grant's signature beside the approval date. His gaze moved to it, then back to me. For the first time since the duplicate pouches appeared, he looked surprised. Colleen picked up the document. Where was this stored? Quality archive. I keep the signed protocols. Grant recovered quickly. This is 2 years old. It governs the current card. That will be part of the review. Colleen read the paragraph I had marked. All legibly completed rider responses will be included in reported satisfaction totals. Operational records may be used for service correction, but will not invalidate rider-reported experience. Ruth's voice came through the speaker. Seems current enough to read. Grant turned toward the screen. Thank you, Ruth. She smiled. Always happy to help with proportion. The meeting ended with my access still restricted and my totals labeled preliminary. At 4:12, an email arrived from Grant's office. Attached was the agenda for the county's quarterly review. The presentation had a new file name, final_client_deck. My dashboard was gone. In its place was Grant's 92.6% chart. The appendix contained a single line beneath my name. Original analyst declined to certify survey integrity. I read the sentence 3 times, waiting for it to become less dishonest. It didn't. I replied to Grant, Colleen, and the operations analyst whose name appeared in the document properties. I have not been asked to certify survey integrity. I have been asked to accept the exclusion of 37 legible rider responses, contrary to the signed protocol. Please correct the appendix, Grant answered from his phone. Come upstairs. His office door was open. Colleen sat in one of the visitor chairs with her legal pad balanced on her knee. The other chair had been angled toward them, close enough to turn a conversation into an arrangement. Grant pointed to it. Sit. I'd rather stand. Colleen's pen paused. Grant closed the door. Your email is a serious escalation. My name is in the client deck. In the appendix. Attached to something I didn't do. We need to explain why your analysis differs from the reviewed result. Say operations used a different methodology. That invites a technical argument the client doesn't need. The client wrote the protocol. Grant leaned back. You're proving my point about objectivity. What point is that? You have tied your professional identity to one number. Any challenge feels personal. You put my name beside a false statement. I put your name beside a professional disagreement. Colleen spoke gently. Mara, would you be willing to certify the raw count while making clear you don't endorse the final methodology? What raw count? The full responses before exclusions. 87.4. Yes, and the deck says 92.6. Grant glanced at her. Colleen adjusted her legal pad. The distinction could be documented internally. Then the client sees a number neither the analyst nor the raw count supports. The client sees the validated metric, Grant said. Validated by you, by operations. I looked at Colleen. Does HR consider those separate? She stopped writing. Grant stood and walked to the window. Below, a mechanic guided a lift platform down in slow yellow increments. I can restore your access, he said. You review the root correlations, we correct what needs correcting, and the county sees one clean report. After renewal, we revisit the compliance position. It was the first time he had named the promotion since giving it to someone else. Do the 37 cards go back in? We revisit exclusions after correlation. That means no. It means we stop acting like one quarter is the final judgment on an entire operation. I picked up the empty visitor chair, moved it back where it usually stood, and sat. I'll certify every total I can reproduce, I said. I won't certify one you got by throwing away valid responses. Grant looked at Colleen. Please note that she declined. Note what I said. Colleen wrote for a long time, which I suspected was how HR expressed distress. Before I left, Grant said, the quarterly review is executive-facing. Attendance is at my discretion. The survey analyst has attended every review for 6 years. Past practice doesn't determine this one. On Monday, my calendar invitation disappeared. At 10:15, Denise Hall sent the packet label images I had requested. 6 white envelopes lay on a gray archive table, each closed with blue tape. Seal numbers 30114 through 30119 were intact. The labels had been printed by the county when the packets arrived, and the handwriting beneath each belonged to the 2 employees who had transferred the locked box contents. Packet 30117 listed W-18 twice. That didn't prove what the cards said. It proved both sets of white originals had reached county custody before the duplicate yellow pouches appeared on my chair. Whatever caused the duplicated run number had happened in the routing process, not at my desk. I printed Denise's email on the second-floor copier, which left no black line, and added it to my locked drawer. Then I checked the lock. The clear evidence sleeve holding the duplicate pouches was there. The signed protocol was there. Leon's unscored card was in its separate envelope. The brass date stamp was gone. I walked upstairs. Its empty ink pad remained beside Ruth's printer. "Did somebody move the stamp?" I asked. Ruth kept typing. "Operations borrowed it." "When?" "Friday night." "Who?" She looked toward the glass wall. The coordinator at the next station was wearing a headset. "Office administrator," she said. "The account that printed the second label. Common account." "Common administrator?" Ruth removed her glasses and rubbed them on her blouse. "You need to stop asking me questions where my honest answer becomes a meeting." "I'm sorry. That wasn't a request." She put the glasses back on. "Daily exception packets still exist. Paper copies. I thought Operations discontinued them." Operations stopped sending them to quality. Dispatch still prints them because the tablets fail. The radio drops, and human beings enjoy making me suffer. "Do you have the week of run 4479? Her eyes shifted toward the locked cabinet. "I can request it formally," I said. "Then Grant denies it formally." "I'm not asking you to steal anything." "Good. I'm too old to look interesting in a mugshot." At lunch, Ruth delivered a stack of routine exception packets to Colleen with a note requesting clarification of the retention policy. She copied me because Quality had historically received them. Colleen replied that existing operational records were to remain preserved during the methodology review. By 3, the packet for run 4479 was scanned into the shared HR folder. The radio notation was brief. 1641W-18 delay 27. ODO model conflict. Close/reopen per GM Grant. Mercer could argue that GM meant general management. He could argue that close/reopen referred to the tablet session, not the trip. He could not argue that the route had been on time. A fuel receipt stapled behind the exception sheet placed the van at a station 11 miles from Lakeview. At the time, dispatch marked it at the clinic geofence. I called Leon. He answered over the clatter of the break room. "Am I supposed to talk to you?" "Who said you weren't?" "Mr. Mercer asked if I gave you an unauthorized card." "You did. I excluded it from the count." "He moved me to split shifts pending coaching." "I'm sorry. You didn't move me. I asked you questions. You asked what happened. That can cost people here." Leon was quiet for a moment. A vending machine hummed behind him. "My father used Civic Access," he said. "Before I drove here, he used to call and say the van was late, and I thought he was exaggerating because he hated waiting. Then I started driving." I closed my eyes. "I can remove your name from my note," I said. "You already wrote it?" "Yes." "Then leave it true." After we hung up, I sat with my hand on the receiver until its plastic warmed under my palm. Grant came in carrying the brass date stamp. He set it on my desk with a solid metal thud. "Looking for this?" "Yes." Office administrator was updating archived pouch labels. Archived labels shouldn't be updated. Damaged labels are replaced. Do they use the date the replacement is printed or the date the pouch arrived? His eyes went to my locked drawer. "The received date," he said. "So someone can stamp a replacement pouch to match an earlier one. Someone can replace a damaged label without corrupting the record. He lifted the stamp and pressed it onto a blank sticky note. The date was wrong by 3 days. He adjusted the wheels with his thumb. "I hear you're calling drivers at work," he said. I called one driver. "You're making employees feel investigated. You moved him to split shifts. Leon has coaching issues. Since when? Since operations reviewed his file." He stamped the sticky note again. This time, the date was correct. "You're hurting people to make me stop," I said. Grant's voice dropped. "You think a bad contract review doesn't hurt people? You think Ruth's mortgage accepts procedural integrity? You think Leon prefers a righteous unemployment check? You built routes that don't work. I built routes that kept the cost per trip below the county cap. By counting a van behind the clinic as a pickup. By using the measurement the county approved. The riders didn't approve it." His hand closed around the stamp. "There it is again. The card is sacred, the route is immoral, and Mara is the only person brave enough to read 5 boxes. You signed the protocol. Before fuel rose 19%, before the county froze rates, before my parents put their house behind a fleet this business needed." He looked tired, not stage tired. The skin beneath his eyes had gone gray, and there was a coffee stain on his white cuff. He had probably been at the bank again. "You could have brought me the decline," he said, quietly. "I did." "You sent a recommendation." "To you." "Then you preserved records with the county." After duplicate pouches appeared on my chair, Grant gave a short laugh without warmth. "You still think I planted them. I think you know why they're there. I know Route 4479 was reopened after a software freeze. I know Dispatch printed a replacement label. I also know you have been waiting a year to prove I misjudged you." He set the stamp down. "That's your story now?" I asked. "It's the context." He left my office, and the coffee on his cuff remained in my mind longer than anything he had said. Daniel was waiting in the parking lot at 6. He leaned against his truck with both hands in his jacket pockets. The wind moved dead leaves around his boots. "Grant says you accused him of retaliating against a driver." I said he moved Leon to split shifts to make me stop asking questions. "That sounds like an accusation." "It is." Daniel looked toward the warehouse windows. "He offered to restore your access if I approved his number. He said you could correct the routes after renewal." "Did he mention the appendix?" "What appendix?" I laughed once. It came out sharper than I intended. "What?" "He wrote that I declined to certify survey integrity." Daniel's face changed. "Did you?" "He never asked me to. He asked me to bless exclusions that violate the protocol." "Okay, then he should change the sentence." "He won't. I'll tell him. You keep offering to translate me into someone your brother might respect." "I am trying to stop this family from detonating over 4.5 points. There it is." "What?" "The thing you think this is over." Daniel pushed away from the truck. "What do you want me to say, Mara? That Grant is evil? He isn't. He's scared. Dad is scared. Mom pretends she isn't. I'm scared. So am I." "Then why are you acting like fear gives you clarity and gives everyone else corruption?" The wind shoved my hair across my face. I held it back with one hand. "That's fair," I said. He looked almost startled. I continued. "I'm angry enough to enjoy being right sometimes. I hate that, but the number is still the number." Daniel looked down at the pavement. "Come home," he said. "We'll order dinner. We'll talk without standing in a parking lot." "If I come home, are you asking me to accept a private correction after the renewal?" His silence answered first. "Just until the loan is done," he said. "Grant puts the cards back, fixes the routes, corrects the next quarter. You get the compliance title. Everybody survives." "And this quarter?" "The service gets fixed. My name stays attached to a fake refusal. We make him change that. He has had 4 chances." Daniel's breath showed pale in the cold. "If you force this in front of the county, you can't control what happens. I can't control what's happening now." I drove to a furnished apartment near the freight tracks with my work clothes in 2 suitcases. The landlord handed me a key attached to a red plastic diamond and apologized for the train noise. At 7:20 the next morning, Celeste Park emailed Grant, Colleen, and me. As the assigned external auditor, I have reviewed the preservation notice and conflicting methodologies. Please ensure the original analyst attends Thursday's quarterly review and brings her tally documentation. County records will remain available if source verification is required. Grant restored the meeting to my calendar. 5 minutes later, he sent a second invitation. Survey integrity preparation. Attendance required. The only attachment was a personnel memo describing my analysis as unreproducible, advocacy-driven, and potentially constructed after the fact. At the bottom was a blank signature line. I printed it on the 3rd floor copier. A thin black line ran from the accusation all the way through my name. I wrote beneath the signature line, "I acknowledge receipt. I dispute the characterization and request that the attached records be included with this memo." The attachments were the signed survey protocol, Denise's packet label photographs, the duplicate pouch images, the printer log, and the email showing exactly when Grant removed my access. I scanned the response on the clean copier downstairs and gave the original to Colleen. She read the first page while I stood at her desk. "You understand signing receipt doesn't mean agreement," she said. "I understand that's what you'll tell me later." Her eyes lifted. "I'm trying to keep the record accurate." "So am I." She turned to the attachments. "Did you photograph documents after being instructed not to access operations data?" "I photographed 2 pouches delivered to my office before that instruction." "And the radio exception?" "You placed it in the shared review folder." Colleen took off her glasses. "Mara, I need you to hear something without treating me like I'm working for Grant. You work for the company." "Yes, and the company is currently a room where 2 people are pouring gasoline while arguing about who owns the matches." I asked him to correct a number. "He thinks he's protecting a contract. He is protecting the way he got the number." She looked at the personnel memo again. "He should not have used constructed after the fact," she said. It was the first direct judgment I had heard from her. "Will you remove it?" "I didn't write it. But will you remove it?" Her gaze returned to mine. "I'll attach your response." At the preparation meeting, Grant had 6 copies of his deck arranged in a perfect fan. He had changed his tie twice since morning. The discarded red one hung over the back of his chair. He pushed a certification sheet toward me. It did not show 92.6 or 87.4. It said only that the quarterly survey findings had been reviewed for completeness and accuracy. "What findings?" I asked. "The deck." "Then put the number on the certification. It's referenced by file name. The file name can change." Grant let out a slow breath. "This is ordinary document control. Then the number shouldn't be hard to include." Colleen sat between us with her hands around a paper cup. She had stopped bringing the legal pad. Grant pulled the certification back. "You've built yourself a very clever position," he said. "You won't endorse the report, but you won't give a clear refusal that can be evaluated. I gave you my total. I gave you the protocol. I gave you the cards I counted. You gave me a conclusion designed to force an operational reversal. I recommended a 30-day test. You sent the county a preservation notice. After duplicate pouches appeared, his hand flattened against the table. The duplicate pouches hurt your case. They show the survey chain is unreliable. The white originals didn't come through my office. You don't know what's in them. Neither do you." For half a second, his eyes moved away. That was all. I looked at Colleen. She had seen it too, or seen me see it. Grant gathered the certification sheets into one stack. "At the review, you answer only questions addressed directly to you. If someone repeats the appendix statement, I'll correct it. You'll state that you decline to certify. I'll state what I decline to certify." His voice became almost gentle. You are forcing me to explain the possibility that the survey was fabricated. The sentence should have frightened me more than it did. Instead, I noticed the red tie behind him and wondered how long he had stood in front of his mirror, deciding which version of himself the county would trust. Then explain it, I said. The county's conference room had a glass wall overlooking a parking garage. Grant always complained about it because headlights moved across the presentations, but he also liked the polished table and the city seal etched into the door. Celeste Park sat at the far end with my report closed beneath one hand. She was smaller than I expected, with close-cut gray hair and a thumbnail worn flat on one side. Denise Hall joined by video from the records office. The county transportation director, Martin Shaw, sat beside two contract staff members. Daniel was there as fleet liaison. I had not known he would be until I saw his name card across the table. Grant began well. He always did. He explained the fuel increase without whining about it, showed how route compression had reduced empty mileage, and answered a question about lift failures from memory. When Martin challenged the maintenance reserve, Grant produced the service interval for every van over 80,000 miles. For 40 minutes, he was the man who had kept Civic Access moving through a fuel shortage. Then he reached the survey slide. The number 92.6 appeared in blue. Celeste opened my report. The analyst's submission says 87.4. We completed an operational validation, Grant said. Your appendix says she declined to certify survey integrity. That's correct. Celeste looked at me. Ms. Mercer? I certified the raw total at 87.4. I declined to certify the exclusion of 37 legible responses. On what basis were they excluded? Grant clicked to a methodology slide. They could not be matched to verified service failures. The protocol says all legible responses are counted. We have reason to believe the underlying survey compilation was compromised. Daniel's face tightened. Celeste asked, compromised how? Grant's fingertip stopped on the number 87.4 projected against the boardroom glass. The survey is fake. The words sounded different the second time, smaller somehow, now that I knew what he had needed to do before he could say them. Those totals were invented, he announced across the glass boardroom. Mara built a result to punish operations for rejecting her recommendations. The slide lit his reflection, silver tie, careful haircut, white scar beside his mouth. Celeste closed my report. Then I'd like the untouched response cards. Grant's hand dropped. They're past retention. They were preserved, I said. Daniel looked at me, then at his brother. His expression asked when I had stopped believing he would stand beside me. I had no answer that belonged in that room. Denise spoke from the monitor. They're in county records. I can bring them up. The quarterly packets? Grant asked. 6 sealed packets, numbers 30114 through 30119. Grant sat down. Denise arrived 12 minutes later, pushing a gray archive tote. During those 12 minutes, Grant answered 2 questions about vehicle utilization and drank an entire glass of water. Daniel kept his hands folded over his name card. Celeste moved to the side table. I gave her my tally workbook, the yellow copy batch sheets, and the photographs showing the seal numbers. She compared the numbers before touching the tote. Grant stood when she lifted packet 30114. Celeste found the edge of the blue security tape and slipped her thumbnail beneath it. The seal curled with a dry ripping sound. I watched her break each seal without saying a word. She placed every broken strip beside its envelope, keeping the numbers visible. Then she separated the first stack by response category. Grant came closer, bracing one hand on the side table. Celeste compared the first stack to my batch sheet. Vehicle cleanliness, 108 excellent, 16 good, 3 fair, she said. Matches. The contract staff helped count while Denise logged custody. They worked through lunch. Sandwiches arrived and went soft in their wrappers. The quarterly review became a table covered with white response cards, yellow copy totals, blue strips, pencils, and 3 county calculators that all made slightly different clicking sounds. Packet 30117 contained both sets of W18 originals. The first set was labeled Run 4479. The second carried the same number in different handwriting. Both had entered the locked boxes before the replacement label was printed under the operations account. Celeste compared the final batch at 2:26. Pickup timeliness, quarter total 87.4% positive, she said. All category totals match the analyst's submission. Card count matches. Exclusions are not authorized by the signed protocol. The cards had answered every question Grant had raised about me. He changed direction immediately. That confirms the arithmetic, he said. It doesn't confirm that riders understood the survey scale. Celeste looked at him. Were they instructed? Drivers distributed the cards. Was there a script? I opened my folder. Grant's attention snapped toward the paper before I had fully removed it. The driver training sheet specified the exact language. Please rate the trip you completed today. Pickup timeliness means the time from your scheduled pickup window until you entered the vehicle. The final page carried attendance signatures from every active driver and Grant's approval beneath the training date. Celeste read it twice. Grant took off his glasses. Then individual drivers failed to follow routing procedure. Ruth had anticipated that turn better than I had. The daily exception packet sat behind the training sheet copied from Colleen's shared review folder. I passed it down the table. Martin read the radio notation aloud. /reopen per GM. Who is GM? Grant looked at the page. General Management. That instruction concerns the software session. The van was 11 miles from the geofence, Celeste said. A driver can buy fuel without authorization. The receipt was attached to dispatch's exception report. Grant's mouth tightened. Then dispatch failed to correct the location. Each answer moved the fault down one level. Analyst, rider, driver, dispatcher. The room had run out of levels. Martin removed his glasses and set them on my signed protocol. We're not deciding employment issues here, he said. We are deciding whether Civic Access submitted an unsupported contract metric. It did. Grant stared at the scratched surface of the table. Martin continued. The contract remains in force during corrective action. We need these routes. We also need accurate reports. 30 days. Independent validation, restored pickup buffers, and no performance incentive calculated from disputed data. The company would survive. The loan would become more expensive. Grant's bonus would be recalculated and the difference repaid. He would remain operations director because he knew the fleet, the county cap, and the routing system better than anyone else in the building. He would lose authority over surveys, compliance, and the people who reviewed his numbers. Consequences arrived as paperwork, which felt appropriate. Colleen removed the personnel memo from active review after the audit found no basis for its accusation. She could not give me back the bonus Grant had withheld under the preliminary rating. Payroll called it discretionary. I called it tuition. Leon returned to his regular schedule. Ruth received 2 additional dispatch positions and complained that training them would shorten her life. The 30-day route test restored 12 minutes at clinic departures. Empty mileage rose 6%. Missed pickup windows fell by almost half. At the first corrective action meeting, Grant sat across from me and signed the restored survey protocol. His signature looked exactly as it had 2 years earlier. I was wrong to say you invented it, he said after everyone else left. It was a narrow apology, offered in an empty county conference room with his laptop already packed. Yes, I said. He waited for me to make the moment easier. I put the signed protocol in my folder. Civic Access offered me the compliance manager title. I declined it. The title still reported through operations, and changing the name on my door would not change the route between my work and Grant's desk. Instead, I negotiated a 1-year role as independent quality liaison under the corrective plan. Civic Access paid the contract. My reports went simultaneously to operations and the county. Either side could challenge my methods. Neither could alter my totals. The arrangement was less secure than employment and came without a bonus. but my access and authority were written on the same page. Walter called it disloyal. Elise called it the first useful thing anyone had done all quarter. Daniel called twice during the week after the review. I let both calls go to voicemail. On Sunday, he texted a photograph of the repaired pipe beneath our sink and wrote, "It still drips when the dishwasher drains." This felt so completely like him that I laughed in the furnished apartment, then cried hard enough to frighten myself. He came by 2 weeks later carrying a small cardboard box. The red plastic diamond on my apartment key tapped against the door while I let him in. Daniel looked tired. He set the box on the narrow kitchen counter and took out the brass date stamp. "Grant boxed it with old office supplies," he said. "Colleen said the quality liaison should have it." I turned one of the date wheels with my thumb. Daniel watched. "I kept thinking I was asking you to wait. I told myself waiting was different from surrendering." "It was different for you." "I know." The train passed behind the building, making the glasses tremble in the cabinet. He looked toward the sound, then back at me. "I asked you to live without peace, so the rest of us could pretend we had it." I pressed the stamp onto a scrap of paper. The date came out crooked. "That's a good sentence," I said. "I had 2 weeks. It needs more than a sentence." "I know that too." We drank coffee at the small kitchen counter. He went home before dark. The next week, we had dinner. 3 weeks after that, I gave him a key attached to a plain steel ring. We did not call the apartment temporary. My first survey cycle under the new arrangement ended on a rainy Friday. I checked the category totals, matched the route sheets, and closed the packet addressed jointly to Grant and county records. The brass stamp came down squarely on the archive label. I smoothed a strip of blue security tape across the envelope and carried Grant's copy upstairs. He was at his window watching a van ease onto a lift in the bay below. I placed the packet on his desk. The seal caught the light between us. Grant looked at it, then at me. "Quarter total?" he asked. "Open it at the review." I left him with the envelope and walked back downstairs.